So monks always used to travel around. But there was a period of exception called as Varshavas, because in most of our philosophies in India, we follow non-violence. So during the monsoon period of 4 months, it was allowed for these monks to be staying at places like these for 4 months of rainy season. Rest of the year, you keep traveling. So what people used to do, they used to collect money from the villagers, and they will make little huts outside the villages, that these holy men can come and stay in these huts. But we soon realized that these huts that you're making, most of the users during the monsoon season. And if the monsoons have been heavier, if they don't last very well, you might have to go back to people, collect money, repair these huts. So if you have a rock like this, and if you can create a space into the rock, once you created this space, you don't need to repair it every year. This was the first reason why we created these spaces. First thing was to give it long life. Now, which means the common people were the first donors, so these caves can come up. The earliest man-made caves of India that we have are actually in Bihar. There is a site close to Gaya called as Barabara caves. These are the first man-made caves of India we have. If you know, to put things into perspective, there was a very old book written by Ian Foster, The Passage to India, and was also made into a movie. The movie was about this, before independence, English girl coming to India. She has a friend who's an Indian doctor, and this doctor is taking her around to explore some caves. And one of the caves, she kind of hallucinates. She's been raped, and there's a court case against the doctor. The caves they show in the movie, they call them Malabar caves. But they're actually called Barabara caves, which are the first man-made caves of the country we have, dating back to 3rd century BCE. 2,300 years back, we created those caves. From one of the inscriptions in those caves are directly donated by one king known as Bindusar. We'll come to this king later on, but those were created in 300 BCE, 2,300 years back. Now the earliest of the man-made caves of India were already created for one of the sect called as Ajivikas. Now, majority of the caves I told you that we have in Maharashtra, almost 900 caves we have in Maharashtra, I would say 85% of these caves are actually Buddhist. Now, Buddhism started 6th century BCE, 300 years after Buddha. This was the time of a great emperor in India. You know his name, Ashoka, who accepted Buddhism, made Buddhism the national philosophy, sent monks all over the country. So Buddhism will start to spread, Buddhism will start to grow. Now the monks who came to Maharashtra to promote Buddhism, they came into contact with these monks. So they came into contact with local people who were already creating these huts. So the monks told them, you already have a rock like this, and we have connections up north in Bihar. We can get those people from there. They'll also start creating the caves for us. Now, 30 kilometers away from Ellora, we have a site called Pittalkhora Caves, which is the earliest man-made cave site that we have in Maharashtra, datable to 3rd century BCE. Commoners were the first people to donate money. Now, over the years, India developed trade contacts with Greece and Rome. There's a 1st century Greek book called Periplus. It's called the Periplus of Athenian Sea. Talks about Greeks coming via Africa to India, the places they used to stop, and the things they used to trade in. So when these traders will come to India, it might have happened, they came into contact with these monks. And they will ask them, do you know where is good silk available? Where are good semi-precious stones available? The monks will say, we are going anyhow, you tag along, we'll show you. The second people who started traveling with these monks were actually the traders. Very interesting trade route which started to develop around almost in the whole country, but especially in Maharashtra. That is the reason, if you start from Mumbai, and if you come at the interior of Maharashtra, you will find these caves at every 30 kilometers. You know, why 30 kilometers? Day's walk. So a person from morning to evening can cover 30 kilometers. The traders among with the monks, they used to move from one side to another, stay at these caves overnight, and you keep moving. Caves became the first hotels for the traders. They were accommodated. And we do find inscriptions with the Greek names who donated money so more caves can come up. So you have every 30 kilometers, we have these caves coming up now. Now, interestingly, when we say Silk Road, everybody thinks about Silk Road of China. Silk Road is not just Silk Road, it's actually Silk Roads. It's a network of many tributaries. This was another offshoot of the tributary. So when the traders started to come in and India kind of became a link to go up to China, first or second century, when the Han dynasty in China started to decline, the work for these caves also stopped because the donation stops coming in. Now kind of comes 5th century. We have a gap of like 300 years when you won't find any new caves going on anywhere. 5th century, India kind of became self-sufficient with producing our own silk, cotton have been growing, semi-precious stones, spices grew. In this region, we had this dynasty called Guptas. Their contemporary in south were Vakatakas. Vakatakas realized we can redevelop these trade routes with our own funds. And the king started to donate money. And if you really think, India is also the land of pilgrims. We've been traveling around for many, many, many years for religion, for philosophy, for finding peace. And these centers where people stopped were also power centers for the kings. So these power centers grew. The kings kind of showed their people that, oh, I can do something for your philosophy, for your religion, and I can charge taxes from all these traders who are coming in. That's where money came in from, the king's influence came in. The caves became very decorative. Lots of carving, lots of paintings going on. 5th to 6th century is also known as the golden period of Indian art. Now, first part of 6th century saw the death of one of the major king of this Vakataka dynasty, named as Harisena. If you have been to the counter of the Dhyana farms, there's a book of Ajanta caves. So Ajanta is during that Vakataka period. Now comes 6th century, Ajanta declined. There was a different dynasty called as Chalukyan dynasty, no problem. Their capital was in present day northern Karnataka. They realized Ajanta is falling down, we can pull that business towards Ellora. So when Ajanta caves end, 6th century, Ellora caves, which is going to be our focus today, really starts. But by now, the intentions to make the caves have changed. They were not just shelters, they were also commemorative buildings. Somebody will come and donate money and to show off that I can do something for your philosophy and good karma, for my good karma. So that's where 6th to 8th century, Ajanta caves, I told you, they are all Buddhist. Here also at Ellora, the first 12 caves that we have are actually the Buddhist caves. Now this is the facade. Now when I say the cave, there's a cliff of the hill, you have to imagine. Somebody came with hammers and chisels and started making the rock flat, because you need the rock to really work on. And then they will carve all these detailed figures. Now, in Buddhism, one thing has been very common in all the Buddhist caves, the basic architecture. The only two types of caves in Buddhism. Chaityas are the temples, which you're looking at it now. Viharas are monasteries. So monasteries were created for somebody to come and stay. Temples where these monks who are staying, they will gather together in a temple. And there will be chantings, there will be singing, there will be worshipping, meditation, and that is the interior of, I'm sorry about the quality of these pictures, I was traveling before this, but then this whole thing that you see has been created with hammers and chisels. Now just think, if you're constructing a building, you always start from the foundation. Then you start going up. Rock-cut caves, it's the other way around. Because when you're using hammers and chisels, it's much more logical to hit it below you. To hit it rather than hitting it above your head when the rock will fall over your face. So the ceiling that you see will be done first, and they come digging down. Now, of course, the trade routes existed. Different sites got lucky with the political attention at different periods, which means Ellora, I told you, starts at 6th century. But don't think there was nothing before 6th century at Ellora. They had wooden buildings. They had wooden monasteries. What they didn't have was political attention to create something like this. Because, see, if I tell you today, I'll make you a house which will last 5,000 years, or I'll make you a hotel which is going to last 5,000 years, how expensive it's going to be. Most of the buildings at that time were wooden buildings. What they were creating was something which is going to last thousands of years. In fact, in one of the caves at Ajanta, there's an inscription. When the funds started to dry out, there were some monks who had to put their own savings to finish off some of the Buddha figures. And the last 2 lines in that inscription, so it's a huge inscription with 18 lines, the last 2 lines in the inscription says, why not donate money for the monasteries, for the retreat of the monks, which will last as long as the sun and moon will last. Shows their intention. Why they would put so much of effort in digging with hammers and chisels into the third hardest rock in nature, which still now we are not able to fathom, that we are not able to work out what metal they used to create something like this. But coming back to our temples, I told you most of the buildings used to be wooden buildings. When they created the caves, they wanted the monks to make you think it's a wooden temple. You can see the ceiling, it's carved to make it look like wood. We have object of worshipping, a stupa at the back, you see the big dome. In front of stupa, which is Buddha, in the teaching hand posture. The space in front was used for meditation as well as chanting. The columns, there's a circumambulatory path behind the columns where the monks can walk around, or even common people who are coming in from outside the door, entering the temple in, where the monks are sitting in the center. They will not disturb the monks, they will just take a circumambulatory path around. So this is cave number 10 at Ellora, the only temple out of the 12 Buddhist caves that we have at Ellora. That's another angle. That's a monastery where we have multiple Buddhas, and this temple, cave number 12, is 3 floors high. This is on the top floor. So we have the Buddhist temple. Since we are talking about these caves, I'm going to go further ahead to the last slide, because what makes this temple special is the precision. You see that sun window up there? Now I told you rock-cut caves, we are digging in from top, which they also knew you have to do the ceiling first. So when they went in, the first rocks from inside the cave came out through that window, that small window that you see. And what makes this window really special for all of us is this video that I want to show you here. Iska volume kar dena. So there's a day, 10th of March, 5:15 p.m. in the evening, when the sun is going down, the sunlight comes through that window, enters in, starts from the feet of Buddha.
Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma
You saw that light coming in, and एक बार फिर से चला के last में pause करना. So the light comes on the face of Buddha and stays there for like 5 minutes. And it's just magical. But you also have to understand, to get that, that light right on his face, the guy who made that window around 30 years before, the guy who made that Buddha figure at the end, we should know the position that Buddha is going to be. But when he's digging in with hammers and chisels, he just had the rock in front. He does not know, because there's not a constructed building where you can move the windows around. The window has to stay there. So that's what makes this place special. So that's only one of the temple out of the 12 Buddhist caves that we have at Ellora. And that's also the temple from the ceiling of the temple. Yes, yes. So the Buddhist temples, the basic design is the same. But at Ajanta, at Ellora, in many of the Buddhist monuments that you see, not just in Maharashtra, even outside Maharashtra, if you go, there is a site called Mandsaur, which is at the border of Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. So there are like 50 rock cut temples there. The design stays the same. It's just that different period of time, like you see, 3rd century BC, they made the caves. They made this temple in 7th century, 1,000 years after. Design stays the same, but the intentions were different. The ideas were different. The use was different, because in 1,000 years, Buddhism evolved. Early phase, it was to meditate. Later on, Buddhism evolved. They had lots of influence of Tantrism, which means they needed chantings, they needed to create acoustics. So in this temple, the acoustics have been perfected. So that's what you see from Ajanta to Ellora, that how the cave architecture has been evolving, and that's what makes this complete package to do Ajanta and Ellora, both of the sides, at least in 2 days. Yes. No, the paintings, I'll tell you the practical reason for paintings. Now, there was a time in India till around end of 5th century, the paintings were used to tell stories, because not everybody could read and write. So if you want to promote yourself as a religion, you want to tell people stories of Buddha, about the previous lives of Buddha, you have to show the paintings. But then the kings got involved. They said, no, we want these things to last. I'll tell you one thing. Let's say you're looking at this temple today, and you're paying respect to Buddha, or just enjoying its beauty. It is because of the effort of that person who donated money for this particular cave or the particular figure. Even though we don't know his name, it's adding into his good karma. This was another intention, why they would create these massive structures, that which have lasted for us. Maybe the guys who donated money, they will never see in their lifetimes. But these structures will last. So that was one way. But over the years, you see Buddha, he's seated, we call this Pralamba Padasana, which means the Buddha is sitting up as if he's sitting on a throne like a king. Before 6th century, most of the Buddha figures which were created, they were created cross-legged. Now let's say I'm an artist, I'm a sculptor, I'm making a figure cross-legged. The knees are closer to my chest, which means the artist who's making a figure, he doesn't have to worry about leaving so much of rock further out. He can start right from here. But now I'm starting to carve a figure, the Buddha is sitting up like a king like this, the knee is further away from the chest. So what he will do, he'll have to leave so much of rock out. Certain things which never happened before, and now you're starting to do, artists were not used to it. So what they will do when they're working on the figures, they'll hit too much of rock. The knee where the rock was supposed to be will fall down, or the rock where the knee was supposed to be will fall down. What's he going to do now? Here you cannot take the figure out and replace it. So what they will do, they'll drill a hole in there. There are many places at Ellora where I can show you there are holes into the figures. They'll drill a hole in there, take Take another piece of rock from outside, carve it just like his knee. With the help of that hole, you fix it there. Before the guy who paid for this figure comes, plaster it up. He'll not know the figure is actually joined. That's the advantage of plastering everything. So this whole temple that you see, at one time, was completely plastered and painted with beautiful colors. It's hard sometimes for tourists who come here, they say, they put so much of effort digging into this mountain. Why would they plaster it up then? They should hide their mistakes. Because they were not aliens. They're also human beings like you and me who were working. So that's where everything was plastered and painted. So whatever carvings that you see in the slideshow here, originally were painted and plastered at one time. But over the years, they have not survived. Now, there are two ways you can create a cave in. The first kind of cave architecture is called cut-in cave architecture. So this temple that you see is a good example of cut-in cave architecture. You have rock face, you have hammer and chisel, you start digging in. The only way the debris, the rock from inside the rock can come is actually from front. Now, the limitation of cut-in cave is you can keep digging in as much as you want. After a certain level, you not enough air, you will not enough light inside. Now, around end of 6th century, first part of 7th century, when they were doing Elephanta in Mumbai, we have another temple at Ellora called that's cave number 29. They found a rock like this. So you have to imagine a hill this way. They started digging from front in. Am I making sense to you? Okay. So you have a rock like this. They started digging from front in. When they were inside the rock, they started digging on the sides. So you got opening from 3 sides. We thought we've done something great. It took us 1,000 years to understand how you can bring light and air into the caves. This is what brings us to our new kind of architecture called cut-out cave architecture. Now, rather than digging from front in, now I told you at first the plateau is formed of steps of volcanic rock. Most of these caves are carved from front in. Now you go to the top of the plateau and you start digging down. When you're digging down, you leave a big block of rock in the middle and carve it out in such a way that separating a big block of rock in the middle. Yeah. So what they did when they started from top, the temple that you see now will be separated out into a central block of rock from all around. We don't know exactly how long any of these temples took at that time. But there's one estimate, 12 to 14 years it took to just separate into a block. 200,000 tons of rock was taken out. Even after 200,000 tons of rock, you don't have a temple yet. Just have a block like a pyramid in the middle. You normally have to give it a shape of a pyramid because you want to go back up these steps to give it more shape. So I told you rock cut architecture, we always do from top to bottom. But the first architecture I told you was front, back, top, down. Now cut out is top, down, back to front. So they went all the way to the top here, separated a big block of rock in the middle, and then the carving started. There's one estimate, it took them 150 years for one cave to finish. Back then, life expectancy was not much. You can survive for 35, 36 years. You can work as a sculptor, 25, 26 years. 6 generations of artists working for the same temple. The same plan to the 6 generations is a miracle for us. What's amazing is the guy who made these models, who made blueprints, who made the plans, the head architect, God bless him, we don't know what his name was. His job was to bring these models to the king, telling him, so we have this vision, we want to make the largest single-piece rock temple of the world. It's been 1200 years. It's still the largest single-piece rock-cut temple of the world. Telling the king, sir, we want you to fund it. We also promise you, you'll never see the finished one. I mean, who's going to pay money for something like that? I won't. But these people knew they had enough resources, they had enough political balance. They'll be able to create something like this. So it's the largest cut-out monolithic cave of the world. Started in 756, finished in 900 AD. But by now, like I told you, gradually we are moving from that intention of giving shelters into power centers. The kings wanted to show off. There was a competition between the kings who can pay money for bigger and better temple. At one site, we have altogether 34 numbered caves, as many unnumbered Hindu caves. Altogether, it could be like 98 caves at Ellora at one site. And it was a competition between the kings. Who can pay bigger and better? But the limitation was, let's say you're painting. I make a mistake on the wall. I'm doing outlines. I make a mistake. What will I do? I'll rub the outlines. I'll do another one. If you're carving on a wall, you do outlines. Can't rub it. So that's the limitation you have. And that is the reason there were specialists. There were specialists for certain things. There were templates created to make the figures. And that's the reason you will find that when you see the stories inside the caves, the templates keep getting repeated at many places. So that's like you see the figures over here. This figure and the next figure. Even though they're two different stories, but look at the form of the figure. It's the same template. So that's, again, that's to get the perfection, because once you make a mistake, you cannot replace it, you cannot change it. So that's the back corridor of the temple. When people will come inside the temple, they will walk around the temple. So basically, that is Kailash, that's cave number 16 at Ellora. It's the largest cut-out monolithic cave of the world. And this is the top view of the Kailash. This is one of the columns. In fact, the shape of the temple has been given the shape of a chariot, like many of the temples in India. This also, the main temple is the shape of a chariot. We have flag posts. We have elephants carved in front, 2 elephants waiting. When the chariot will move, they will carry the chariot ahead. So that's Kailash at the back corridor over here. This is the inside of the temple. We are at the back. This is the front entrance that you come in. 95 to 96% of times, the columns that you see inside these caves, they're not supporting anything up, only for decoration. If you break off all these columns, something is going to fall down. They were just carved to make you think it's a building of that time. But see, so much of effort was put for these little things. And just to wrap it up, I'll play a few videos, and then if you have any questions. So when people walk around the temple, they see these carvings around, and every panel has a story. We have Durga on that side. We have Madan and Rati, which is the god and goddess of love. That's Vishnu over here riding Garuda. You can see the wings of Garuda at the back with the legs folded. And so that's the base of the temple with these elephants supporting the temple up. There's lots of symbolism in the caves when you're going around. Elephants, they symbolize prosperity, money. Lions, they symbolize political power. So that's basically the the elephants, the lions. You have many times composite animals for that. Just one more thing I want to add is these are only the 2 caves that I showed you, and the site is huge. It it takes really long time to get hold of what these guys were doing, because the average age for these caves is 1500 years old. I was looking at the brochure of bridges, and one thing which struck me, It said responsible, mindful tourism. One thing I noticed at the caves, in many of our historical buildings, our steps that you see are always uneven. Smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger. Working with so many tourists around, every time they come here, because when you're selling our monuments, selling hotels, one thing we look at is wheelchair access. People should be able to easily walk around, making it easier for you. So many tourists come. You guys are amazing artists who could create something like this, which is 80 meters in length, 51 meters in width, 33 meters deep. This temple is not high, this temple is deep, because that's where they started from. They knew how to make proper steps. What happens in many countries, when you're constructing a house, you'll have inspectors coming in to check the height of the steps. What you're actually doing, when you're walking on the same height of the steps, your mind takes it for granted. The steps have to be the same height. When you walk on uneven steps, our mind is attentive. You go to many temples around the world, the first thing they will teach you is mindfulness. What's mindfulness? That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just sitting and chanting Om. Every step you're taking, you have to be mindful. Everything you say, you have to be mindful. Everything you're biting, you have to be mindful. So always you will find when you're going into the historical monuments, the steps are deliberately left uneven because we want you to be mindful. Not on autopilot. Always, always. Why? Wonderful. So this was the shortest of the introductions we can do for you for Ellora. If you have any questions, right here. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. Every year, but it should actually happen twice, because the sun goes this way, it should come back. The second time is actually September, which is cloudy for us. It's monsoon for us, so we never get in September. Now, why it happens on 10th of March, nobody knows. But there is a panel, when you see that from the light comes, just below that panel, there is a donation ceremony carved on the wall with the king offering something to the monks who are standing on the other side. His queen is at the back, his attendants are there. So possibly it was important for the king at that time. But nobody seems to know why 10th of March, not on any of these astronomical events, which is like 5:15 p.m. Because all the caves at Ellora are west-facing caves. So 5:15 p.m. in the evening, you get light right on his face. When I took this video, there were 10 other people. But now it's getting an event, but still not as bad. We have not promoted, frankly, our Maharashtrian sites have not been promoted very well. So that's one thing. That 10th of March we have not promoted. It just happened just here. Other places also. I can take you to some caves where there's nobody, they don't even go all day, and still the light comes on the face of Buddha or Mahavira. They are the earliest of the caves. I told you those are 1st century BC. We have to go into the details of Buddhism, but if you see those caves, they don't have a Buddha figure at the back, they only have a stupa. Because for first 600 years in Buddhism, Ajanta and Ellora are actually the best sites to really see how a religion evolves and gets into a shape that we see it today. Because if you see the caves which are done in 200 BC, what people were worshipping was different from what they will worship in 7th century. Because people's needs were different at different times. So that's what you will see over the period of time. Basic architecture stays the same. So we have animals were created. There's many things which, see, art has a way of passing on knowledge without writing down, right? So we have a saying in India, if you have a live elephant, he's worth 100,000. If you have a dead elephant, he's worth 125,000. Zinda hai to lakh ka, mara to sawa lakh ka. So elephants were big investments for anyone who could afford to have elephants. Whenever the kings wanted to show their wealth, they will show elephants. They wanted to show their political power, they will show lions. Then you have a composite animal called yali, which has the trunk of the elephant. This is one form of yali. There are many different forms of yali, but gaja yali is the trunk of the elephant. You have a head of a ram and back of a lion. So ram symbolized military prowess. So if you have a good king, if you have good military, if you have good money, what else you need? So these animals became kind of symbols, insignias of these kings who wanted to show off. Then you have Ganga, the river goddess Ganges, sitting on Makara, which later on becomes Mugger, and everybody started calling it crocodile. It's really 7 animals mixed together. So different animals had different symbolism, and that's where these animals, over the time, we believe grew into dragons, because we always had these, relations with the European world as well as with China. Thank you.